You are listening to the Mike Riley Now podcast on the Young Angels of America Network. Follow us by visiting MikeRileyNow.com. All right. And welcome to the Mike Riley Now podcast, broadcasting to you from the Young Angels of America Network, brought to you by Community Service Live. Welcome one and all of my new subscribers, people tuning in for the first time. I am your host, Mike Riley. I am joined by my lovely co-host. I got to get your last names right today. My girl, Cameron Robson. And I got my girl, Charlie Sandy, up in here. Say hello, everybody.
Hello. Hi.
All right. Beautiful. Welcome to the Mike Riley Now podcast. Please make sure that you follow us on all the social medias, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, all that cool stuff. Log on to MikeRileyNow.com. Also, drop us a line. Let us know how we're doing on the show. Tell all your friends to subscribe on iTunes, iHeartRadio, all that cool stuff. Yeah, y'all, welcome to the show. So, how y'all doing this week? How's everybody doing this week?
Pretty good, I guess.
Yeah, eventful. We got 13 days left until we all go out and vote for a new president. How are we feeling about that? 13 days left. Oh, my gosh.
I'm feeling nervous despite people telling me I shouldn't feel nervous.
Well, yeah. Why do you feel nervous? What's the nervous feeling?
What do you think?
You think you're nervous that Donald Trump just might win, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's also really nerve-wracking because we don't have any control because we can't vote yet.
Yeah,
right,
and so
yeah.
we're leaving like all of this like possible like destruction to like our community in the hands of people that aren't ourselves, and it's a little frightening to do that.
It's disconcerting.
That's all the more reason why we have you guys here, so you can talk to the next generation who is going to be voting here pretty soon and let you know and
Please
get in their face about this type of stuff. Yes, absolutely. It's so important. And there's so much going on this week. There's a lot that's happening in the news. A lot of things concerning, one of the big stories that's happening right now is there in North Dakota. A couple of weeks we actually reported on the Dakota pipeline, how Amy Goodman was arrested. She's a journalist who went out there and reported on the Dakota pipeline and was arrested. Today, by the way, I always forget to do this. Today is Thursday, October 27th, 2016. Today, there was so much police presence. There were still protests going on there at the Dakota pipeline today, there in North Dakota, to try to stop the corporations from building that pipeline through that land. And today, there was reported there was so much police presence there, so many arrests, so much violence that was going on. Not a lot of violence, but a lot of, I should say, hostility towards the civil disobedience, so to speak. That was going on. And at the same time, another thing happened today. I don't know if many of you remember the Cliven Bundy people who went up to that wildlife refuge in Oregon and took it over for, let's say a couple weeks. And they were there with guns and stuff like that. And they were standing up to what they would say is a tyrannical government because Cliven Bundy a couple years ago, his cows were grazing on federal land and he was told to pay fines and he didn't, and people got mad at the federal government and all this other stuff. So they went and they ransacked a wildlife refuge up in Oregon. A couple years later, his son and a couple of his followers, and they were in this wildlife refuge there with guns, and they pretty much broke the law. And on their way out of the wildlife refuge, they got into a huge shootout with the FBI and with federal agents. One of them got shot. The rest of them got put in jail, and they were all acquitted today and found now guilty. So the funny thing is that these people can be found not guilty for that, for pretty much shooting at federal agents, holding up a federal building, the wildlife refuge that was there in Oregon, and pretty much breaking the law, and they can be found not guilty. Yet all these protesters down here in North Dakota are getting arrested.
Despite being peaceful protests.
Exactly.
Non-violent.
Now, and that's just ridiculous. Now, the reason I bring this up is because today I turned on CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News, and all these other stations, and they barely are talking about this. When I turned on CNN right before I got here, and they were talking about how Mike Pence's plane skidded off the runway for a second. Didn't nobody get hurt. Everybody's fine. Nothing happened. No big deal. But I mean, that was like a huge news story. And then they flipped over and talked about Michelle Obama and Hillary Clinton, how they gave each other a hug today and how they used to hate each other back in the day. And they talked about Donald Trump. Then they talked about emails. they talked about all this stuff, but they never really got around to actual news, right? And that kind of brings us to our first segment today, which is about the media. Now, if you go out and ask your average American, how do you feel about the media? What do you think they're going to say? They're probably going to say they freaking suck. I hate the media. They're full of shit. They do all this horrible stuff.
Yeah.
You know, but I got a question to ask all of y'all and all of y'all out there listening. When you hear the word media, what comes to mind? And I'm going to give you a minute to think about it, and I can wait. What about you, Charlie and Cam? When you hear the word media, what's the first thing that pops in your head? When you hear the word the media, what do you think of?
Well, I just sort of think of all the negative connotations that come with the word, you know, bias and unhelpful, ruining, and it's all just because of how the media seems to latch on to anything that will get a reaction out of people, that will drive people a certain way or manipulate them to a certain side. And I think that media itself is just supposed to be news. It's supposed to be what's happening in the world, and it's now been so cut and picked and plucked within an inch of its life that it's no longer news. It's being force-fed through a tube of what they want you to know.
Yeah. And what about you, Cameron? When you hear the word the media, what's the first thing that comes to your head?
When I hear the word media, a lot of the times I think about how we don't really get news from around the world, and how we focus on these little stories that really aren't that important, or, I mean, they may be important, but they're not what we really need to, like, be focused on right now, and, like, we need to be aware of, like, what's going on in the world, and, like, Americans we aren't aware of what's going on in the world, and so it's just, I always kind of have an annoyance with media because they don't talk about anything else except, like,
America.
Yeah, except America.
America. Yeah, awesome. You know, it's funny. The answers that both of you guys gave are ones that come to mind when I think of media a little bit too. And another thing is that I noticed that both of your answers had a little bit of a negative connotation towards them. So you kind of view the media in like a negative way, right?
The media as it is today, yes.
Right. Yeah. What about you, Brooke? What do you hear? What do you think of when you hear the word media? I'm just curious.
She's coming.
Brooke's got to walk up here, by the way. I'm gonna play y'all some elevator music. Psych.
When I think of media, I think of the spectrum of print magazines, newspapers, and all the new and different platforms that are sometimes mistaking news for entertainment. I think that's kind of what it's come to. When I used to think of media growing up, which was a long time ago, we had newspapers and we had the 7 o'clock news, and that was it.
All right. Now, when I hear the word media, and the first thing that comes to my mind, honestly, is MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, straight up. Those are the first things that come to my head. And that's because those are the big dogs in media, right? That's what everybody thinks of when they think of the word media. When we say we hate the mainstream media, it's basically that's what we're talking about. And then you have all the little corresponding ships below, right? Mm-hmm. Now, most people, and to piggyback off of what I just said, I don't necessarily know if I view the media in a negative sense based upon what I'm about to tell you now. Kind of what Brooke just said, because I look at it kind of in the sense of entertainment or infotainment, as they call it nowadays. Now, what's the media set up for, right? What's the purpose of the media? The First Amendment states that we have freedom of the press, right? Freedom to pretty much express your views, and nobody should be able to get in the way of that, right? And so the First Amendment was set up
to protect those rights,
right? And also, too, the government can't necessarily get involved into what other people want to say, right? Unless it's
threatening to the state
or unless it's slander,
yes,
essentially, right? Unless you're going out there spreading false lies about people, and that's not even criminal. That's more of a civil thing, right?
Yeah, but sometimes they still get away with stuff like that, and so
right. So why do so many people hate, distrust, can't stand the media? Kind of listening to what everybody's answers are, including my own, especially if the media is supposed to be this entity that's set up to inform us about information. They're kind of like the fourth branch of the government a little bit, right? And that freedom of the press, that First Amendment right is something that, excuse me, that's something that we all hold so very dear. But we've gotten to this culture where none of us like the media at all. Now, the media back in, I would say, prior to the 1980s, news, as it was more properly coined and termed, was essentially set up to inform the public on relevant and sometimes controversial matters, but they were required to give both sides of the story. That was a requirement of the media. A lot of the major stations didn't make a lot of their money off of news. They made most of their money off of, entertainment, sports, things like that. News was kind of like that boring thing you watched at the end of the day. Now, you always had your Walter Cronkites and things like that, but that message that was being broadcasted out was supposed to be a message that was to inform you and to let you make your own decision after that. In 1987, I believe it was, Ronald Reagan deregulated the media a little bit by getting rid of what was called the Fairness Doctrine. Now, the Fairness Doctrine was a policy of the United States, part of the FCC, right? And everybody knows what the FCC is. That was introduced in 1949, and it was to require the holders of broadcast licenses both to present controversial issues of public importance and to do so in a manner that was important to the commissions of law. This was pretty much torn down, and Bill Clinton kind of exacerbated it when he signed the Telecommunications Act of 1966, kind of allowing big corporations to kind of get their hands into the media. Once big corporations have their hands into something as big as the media, that message that starts being broadcasted out 9 times out of 10 is going to be in the corporation's best interest, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of these corporations, for example, things like the big oil companies, like every time you turn on MSNBC or Fox News or something, the commercials are always pharmaceutical commercials about drugs. Yeah. I can't tell you how many, Viagra commercials I see on MSNBC every other day, and they're things from, BP oil and, Coke Industries and all these big, and notice how they never report on any of these issues in those media thing. But what do they focus on? They focus on, like you said, a lot of the bullshit. Yeah. All this stuff happening in Montana today, or not Montana, excuse me, in the Dakotas today. Yeah. All this stuff happening with the Clive and Bundy people, all these other things going on around the world. And the only thing they want to do is report to you stuff that starts a literal horse race. Now, why is that? They do that because they have to get ratings. If they get ratings, they can sell more commercial space, right? Especially during this time of year. I mean, this is election season. Now, Fox News, now to kind of help people out a little bit, and we're kind of coming up against a break here, but to help people out a little bit, I personally feel that when it comes to media, I think a better way to look at it is to look at it for what it is. It really is just entertainment, isn't it? And it kind of sucks because we really do need something out there that can help inform us on the issues from a non-biased standpoint. Now, don't get me wrong. We live in the 2016, so there is a world wide web out there, right? I mean, there is the internet. You can go to a million different places, and the internet has really changed the nature of media. Absolutely. For the good, because now anybody can put anything out there. I mean, how are you listening to this podcast right now? I mean, this would be considered media, right? Yeah. So, and one last thing I want to bring up is the deregulation of media, I think, is something that is a conversation we need to really talk about. Because would you agree that media can be dangerous? Absolutely.
Yeah. You can spread messages that shouldn't be spread, or
like propaganda, sort of, right?
I mean, and everywhere across the globe, it's not restricted to America. I mean, media caused Brexit to happen in the UK, and now everyone's going, crap, didn't want that, but media manipulated everyone to want it, right? And I don't know. I think. And then it came across into America where, I knew what Trump had for breakfast that morning, but I didn't know that the UK that England had a new PM.
Right, exactly.
Which is, I think, shocking and just shows the extent of our media.
Yeah, because they're out there trying to entertain people versus actually inform them. And not even entertain. I think they're more so bent on showing you a rat race, showing you something where, man, it's neck and neck. There's a lot of controversy going on, so we can keep your eyes glued to the TV versus informing you. So yeah, I mean, I think it's time for some new media. It's time for us to step it up. All right, y'all, we'll be right back. This is the Mike Riley Now podcast, right here on the Young Angels of America Network. You are listening to the Mike Riley Now podcast on the Young Angels of America Network. Follow us by visiting MikeRileyNow.com. All right, y'all, and welcome back to the Mike Riley Now podcast. I'm your host, Mike Riley, here with my girl Charlie and my girl Cameron and my girl Brooke in the back. Lots of girls in here. I'm fine with that, I suppose.
Outnumbered.
Yeah, I am very outnumbered, so don't say nothing bad about the ladies today, right? All right, we are into our second segment, which is our news of the week. Got a couple really relevant stories here. First one, I know a lot of y'all have heard, if you follow in business, if you follow the business world, that AT&T is trying to buy Time Warner. It's the biggest business merger, in the history of our nation. $85 billion. They're trying to merge this company together, and they're trying to AT&T is trying to take over that wing of communication when it comes to your television broadcasting, because Time Warner owns a lot of the big cable companies, right? Like CNN and things like that. And a lot of people are trying to stop this deal. They can't just do it, first of all, because there's a lot of regulation. There's like 400 pages of regulation. Companies that big can't just merge together like that. And also, too, it really says a lot about what is it that they're trying to do. Now, back in the 1920s, there was the Sherman Antitrust Act, which was put together because it was meant to break up these big-ass companies from becoming huge companies and starting monopolies. And I don't know. I personally, and this is, I'm gonna come out and say it, I can't stand AT&T. I hate AT&T. AT&T. I hope they end up like the Titanic. They just sink. I can't stand AT&T. And it's funny too, because we just got rid of AT&T at the house and switched over to Time Warner, and we were like, okay, we like Time Warner better. It's still a little whack, but we like Time Warner better. And then AT&T buys them out, so we got to go back to AT&T again. Yeah. I got rid of AT&T because I didn't like them, and now I got to deal with them again. So it's kind of funny. Donald Trump actually says that he wants to stop this deal. Now, this deal isn't coming into fruition just like that. There are lots of big hands in play, and it may not happen. So that's from the New York Times. So that's the first story. I think that's pretty interesting, and it says a lot about government regulation. The next story is this one about the California National Guardsmen who were asked to give back their signing bonuses because of a governmental error. And this has been put on hold. Have you guys heard about this story?
No. Actually, yeah, I read about it. It's kind of interesting because these people are being forced to give this money back that they had no idea wasn't their money. And, so there are people that have spent all of it and they're, trying to scramble to pay it up. Or there are people that are fighting it and, are no, I don't want to pay this back.
Well, basically, in a nutshell, what happened was, about 10 years ago, the California National Guard was running low on recruits. And so they went out, they had a lot of guys recruited and a lot of guys re-enlisted, and they promised them these signing bonuses if they re-enlisted or if they recruited, and they got their signing bonuses. Now, this was all done in a predatory fashion, kind of like what Wells Fargo did, right? We talked about a couple weeks ago. Yeah. And as a result, the Pentagon is not asking those people for that money back. And they're like, wait, what?
Yeah, this is our money.
This is our money. You can't do that.
That's my race car.
Yeah, what do you can't just come and ask for your money back after you did it.
Crisis.
Now, this has been a huge bipartisan thing. Everybody from Jerry Brown down to Kevin McCarthy, down to President Obama, all the way on to even Darrell Issa, who I can't personally stand, but even he, are all standing up against this and saying that this is wrong. And this was all done through this predatory way of recruiting people to join the military. If you've ever been into a recruiting office, for those of you who are in the military, those recruiters will sit there and promise you the world. They'll sit there and make you feel like you're going to be G.I. Joe once you join, the military. You're going to have this huge flag and this parade when you come back home and all this other stuff. And lo and behold, once you join the military, a lot of them realize it's nothing like that. They realize they got kind of bamboozled, and these guys will do anything to get you to sign up. A lot of the military is like that. I'm not saying all of it. Obviously, we salute our men and women in uniform and all that other stuff, but that's all the more reason why they shouldn't be required to give this money back, in my opinion. So this has actually been put on hold. The Secretary of Defense Ash Carter actually ordered the Pentagon on Wednesday to stop clawing back excessive recruiting bonuses paid to California National Guardsmen. So hopefully this doesn't persist, and hopefully they won't have to pay that money back fully, because I think that's somewhat near god awful. Well, what do y'all think? And it's kind of funny too, because I have a lot of friends that say, "See, this is where government gets too big, and this is why we can't stand the government, because they do stuff like this." Look at it on the flip side. There are people in the government that are actually helping, trying to stop this.
Some of the biggest people in government are trying to
prevent
it, which are the people that most people are like,
they're for it.
Yeah, exactly. All those people, even the ones even a lot of the politicians that I don't particularly care for myself, are trying to put a stop to this. So, shout out to all those California National Guardsmen. I hope they get through this all in one piece. All right, our next story. I can kind of locate it here. Hold on real quick. I'm kind of going through my notes. Right. I was reading this today in the Huffington Post, where it said humans are close to killing off 2/3 of all the wildlife in just 50 years. It says a damning new report from the World Wildlife Fund, the WWF, former World Wrestling Federation, has found a decline in the world's animal populations as 1,000 of species scramble to survive against humans. And I mean, I don't know. I'm not like one of these people who tries to kind of go out there and preach the whole PETA thing. Not to say that there's anything wrong with that, but all these dwindling populations of animals all across the world. I mean, like wildlife animals that people go out and just kind of hunt for trophies. It's a little sociopathic, don't you think? I mean, I saw those pictures of like Trump's kids holding up those like leopards or jaguars or whatever. They just went out there and shot.
It's despicable.
That is so fucking like.
It's vile.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't see like how somebody can go shoot at something that can't shoot back at you.
Yeah, I think the second we evolved from using our bare hands is when we needed to stop, because then we're at a disadvantage. We're at an advantage to every other animal out there that has nothing but what natural selection, what evolution has given them. We have created things that are not our own and use them to give us the upper hands. And I think it's unfair, and it's affecting food webs, and it's affecting everything.
All kinds of different ecosystems. And the question is just why?
For sport, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, you get down to like the last couple animals on Earth. I mean, there's like one white rhino or whatever it is left in Africa, and he's being.
I think it's like one male.
Yeah, one male white rhino.
Yeah. Which is awful, because now that can't.
Yeah, he can't. It's not like he can get pregnant, and then he has to stay. And I'm telling you, he's more guarded than the president is. I mean, he
seriously.
has straight armies with AK-47s watching his back all night just to make sure poachers don't go over there and pop him. That is crazy how far people go just to go hunt something. That's why that dentist got all that flack right last year for killing Cecil the lion. Yeah. I mean, I personally don't understand it, but this is a story according to the Huffington Post, and I think it's pretty damning. And we actually have time for one more story here. This is according to Alternet. Lab-grown meat is the future of food, is what it's saying. It says, soon your burger may come out of a test tube. Cultured meat, or meat developed in a scientific lab rather than from slaughtered animals, is rapidly becoming the future of food or protein. And apparently it's actually better for you, it's better for the animals, and it's supposed to even taste better than the real thing.
It sounds too good to be true, that.
Is it still made out of meat?
Have you ever been to Veggie Grill?
Yeah.
Okay, if you've ever been to Veggie Grill before, and you tried their like chicken sandwiches or whatever else they have, and they're supposed to be like,
but they're made out of tofu.
Yeah, I don't care what nobody says. That shit is chicken. It tastes just like it.
It's good. It's good. They're crispy chicken sandwiches.
Yeah, so maybe it might not be such a bad idea. And I'm one of these people where I wish I could be a vegetarian. I know all my vegetarian.
I have too much of a weakness for me.
Yeah, go ahead and send all your hate mail to Mike Riley now at gmail.com. Straight up, I will read it. I promise you. I know how I look. You remember that band No Doubt?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, y'all probably remember that. I'm from Orange County, so I love No Doubt. Not to mention they weren't. Probably, yeah, okay. But there was the I forget the Indian dude's name, the bassist. He's a vegan, right? And I went to this restaurant in West Hollywood one time, and he was sitting next to me, and I was like, "Oh man, you're from No Doubt. What's going on?" I started telling him all this stuff. He was like, man, are you a vegan? I was like, nah. Man, he talked to me for like he gave me a 3-hour lecture on why I shouldn't eat.
Yeah, that's what they'll do. That's what they'll do, honestly. Like,
it seems so strange to me that, like, I don't go to vegans and vegetarians and go, here's why you need to eat meat.
Well, I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying from my perspective, it gave me a different perspective on why I shouldn't eat meat. I really want to stop eating meat. I wish I could.
Wait, Mike, wait. Paleo. I'm just here to shout out for the caveman diet and what our original ancestors ate and grass-fed beef and all of that. And yeah, my brother's a vegan, but you know what? We've got to be open.
Yeah, but that's true. But you can survive off of a vegan diet.
Yeah.
Really, really easily. So anyway, all right, y'all, we're coming up against another break here. We'll be right back. You are listening to the Mike Riley Now podcast on the Young Angels of America Network. Follow us by visiting MikeRileyNow.com. All right, y'all, and welcome back to the Mike Riley Now podcast. I am Mike Riley here with Cameron, my girl Charlie, and my girl Brooke. Hello, everybody. I cannot wait to get you some headphones there, Cameron and Charlie, so that way y'all can hear this beautiful music that, I'm playing through here. Everybody says my voice on that. You listen to the Mike Riley Now podcast. Sounds like one of those late night, midnight jams, brothers. Like, yeah, ladies, this goes out to you. This one's for all of you. I'll take that. All right, y'all. Welcome back to the Mike Riley Now podcast once again. Make sure you go on MikeRileyNow.com, subscribe, do all that cool stuff. So this is the economic portion of our show, and what I really want to talk about today is the Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare, aka Hillary Care before it was Obamacare, aka Romney Care, aka Roosevelt Care, because there's been all kinds of people who have been trying to kind of implement some healthcare reform in this country, right?
What's up with the last name care thing? Like,
I don't know. It's just like gate. It's like every time there's a controversy,
I want my name stamped on that.
Yeah, it's something gate, something care. Like like whenever something happens now, it's something like phone gate, email gate. Email that was all after Watergate.
E-gate.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Big gate, metal gate. Anyway. I always find myself in conversations with people, both liberal and conservative, who express pretty much their disdain for the Affordable Care Act. For the most part, a lot of people are like, man, my premiums went up. I can't afford it. I'm forced. Now we're mandated to have health care. And if we don't, then we're going to end up getting penalized for it year after year. And on top of that, recently it was just announced, because the open enrollment for Obamacare is actually going to be coming up here pretty soon. I think it's actually starting next week. And today he actually did a kind of like what we're doing right now, where he took questions from people and he answered questions about the Affordable Care Act. But the premiums are going up. Next year, it was stated that people's healthcare costs, if you're not getting healthcare from your employer, if you have private health insurance, your healthcare costs are actually going to go up, and it's going to actually hit you in the pocket. Now, this is pissing a lot of people off, and it's actually one of the big talking points for Donald Trump. See, I told you the Affordable Care Act wouldn't work. We're going to repeal Obamacare and replace it with something better. Yeah.
What exactly?
Yeah. He wants to get rid of state lines so more companies can compete or whatever.
He just knows he doesn't want that.
Yeah. Now let's dissect this for a second. Now, when it comes to healthcare, what do you think as a country we should do, both economically in a way where it's cost effective, and at the same time in a way where people can be looked at? I think the first thing we have to ask ourselves is healthcare a right or a privilege? Right. Now what's the difference between a right and a privilege? Like, right, you have the right to live. You have the right to
remain silent.
You definitely have the right to remain silent. We have our rights kind of stated in the Bill of Rights, right? And then you have privileges, right? Like driving a car is a privilege, right? Yeah. Because hell, you can be dangerous and you may not be suitable to drive. Owning a gun is a right as opposed to a privilege for some oddball reason, but that's
God knows why.
Yeah, that's a question for a whole nother conversation. But before the Affordable Care Act came around, healthcare was considered just a privilege. If you have money and you can get yourself checked out, but if you get sick and you're broke, well, you're kind of assed out. And if you're sick, you know, an insurance company probably won't take you, or if you have a pre-existing condition, an insurance company won't take you, or if you do get sick and you are on insurance and you hit your cap, then they can kick you off the insurance and you're on your own. And they didn't have to provide, you know, preventative care measures for women and, you know, all kinds of horrible things. So the Affordable Care Act changed all that. But at the same time, a lot of people say, well, it just raised our premiums up. It raised our premiums up. And look, our premiums are going up again. Thanks, Obama. Thanks, Obama. You know, because of you, you know, our healthcare system is worse than it's ever been. You know. Now, I kind of want to address a couple things here. First of all, why are the cost of our premiums going up? A lot of people really don't know. A lot of people just point the finger at the president and they say, well, it's because he sucks and he just didn't do a good job at it, right? First of all, one of the main reasons the healthcare costs never got balanced out the way it should for the Affordable Care Act is because a lot of the states that have Republican governors wouldn't take the Medicare exchange or the federal Medicare expansion package. In other words, they were trying to expand federal Medicaid to all these different people so low income families can get healthcare, and they wouldn't take it because they let the states set up their own exchanges. And why are the healthcare costs going up right now? Well, kind of for the same reason. It's not like the government has control of the health insurance industry, is it? They don't control drug prices, do they? No. The government is just there to kind of regulate and mandate things, but health insurance, for the most part, is still in the hands of private entities. So if your health insurance premiums are going up, that's because private insurance companies are raising your healthcare costs. Now, why are private insurance companies raising your healthcare costs?
Because they like money.
Pretty fucking much. That's pretty much what it is. I mean, it's not like insurance companies are suffering out there, are they?
Yeah. It's not they're going, oh no, now I have to pay more for my healthcare.
Right. And a lot of these insurance companies now are getting off of Obamacare. They're trying to kick it to the curb now. And this is another big Republican talking point to the "see, I told you it wouldn't work" type of rhetoric. And a lot of them are trying to do what AT&T and Time Warner are doing right now. And they're trying to merge, become even bigger healthcare companies.
A monopoly.
Right.
A monopoly,
you know, and they're trying to do this whole thing. So you see that this is not necessarily something that's, you know, the fault of the POTUS himself, but a lot of these insurance companies that are just greedy, and they're not in the business to see you get better, or to see you not get sick, but they're mostly just in it for the profit. Now you can kind of look at it from a perspective. Now, do you feel like that's right? Do you feel like that's okay as far as people's healthcare is concerned? Do you feel like the healthcare industry should be a for-profit industry?
Of course not. It's absurd to even consider it, and I mean it's unthinkable that this is the culture and that this is the system that we have to live with as Americans. It is a basic human right to be able to live another day.
To live, I mean...
so then why are we putting a cap on people being able to live another day? It's just like...
You're putting a price on human life, essentially.
And then you're jacking up the cost if they do want to fucking live.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, think about we pay more for prescription drugs in this country than any other country, not any other country, but any other developed country in the world. I mean, we pay the most for prescription drugs. What's that guy's name? Martin Shkreli, who would charge like $500 a pill for like a pill that helps people out with HIV and AIDS or something like that. Yeah. I mean, and they're allowed to price gouge. They're allowed to do that.
Yeah, and why are you telling me what I need to get in order to be okay? Ask your doctor this. No, my doctor will tell me what I need because he should care about my health.
Right. And same thing with the hospital, same thing with a lot of these doctors. My father passed away back in 2009. And he was pretty, you know, he wasn't doing too well towards the end of his life and from an economic standpoint. And he didn't have health insurance. And he had a bad back problem. He was taking this pill, that I later found out was was killing people. I don't remember the name of the medication. But he was taking it for his cardiovascular problems, and this pill was making him sick. So he goes to the doctor because his heart rate starts to speed up, and he goes to the hospital, and he didn't have health insurance. And I personally think they just let him die. And because they'd rather let you die than to sit there and say, well, not all hospitals and things like that aren't like this, but that just goes to show you that this idea of if you're poor, if you don't have the money to take care of yourself, you're just kind of assed out, and how that spills over into our healthcare system. As you know, well, you don't necessarily have the right to live. It's pretty disturbing.
It's utterly despicable.
And if we truly have and you're inevitably going to get sick or get hurt. I mean, you're human, right?
Especially
if you're us. Yeah, we're very accident prone.
Right. You're just preaching to the choir. So don't you think that health insurance should be a basic individual right? Just out of curiosity. Now, I know a lot of people out there saying, well, man, I'm young. I'm cool. I don't take any stupid risks, so I'm not going to get sick. And why should I have to pay for somebody else to get health care? Just because they don't feel like working or whatever. I mean, that's that standpoint, right? So if that's the case, and if a lot of people believe that, and I know a lot of people do, what do you feel is the best solution to this problem? Because we can't go back to the way things were, right? So what do? Hillary Clinton has proposed what is called a public option. Now, do y'all know what a public option is?
Not especially.
Not especially? Okay. It's kind of like this. I'm trying to get a good example of what a public option is. What's a good example of a public option? I'll just make one up. Okay, back in 2000, Al Gore was campaigning on this idea of the internet, right? Wi-Fi, the internet, because in other countries you practically breathe internet. Like if you go to China and Japan and stuff like that, they got Wi-Fi everywhere. It's just in your blood.
Yeah.
And according to Jill Stein, it causes, cancer or whatever. I'm just joking. I love Jill Stein. But Al Gore was proposing this idea that the government, the United States government, should have an internet system, right? Now, of course, where people can log on to, let's say your Wi-Fi says United States government Wi-Fi. Now, all of these people, all of these big cable companies like Verizon and Time Warner and Cox and all these, they were just like, no, you can't do that. Government take over the internet, blah, 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 blah. Why? Because they didn't want to have to compete with the government. Because they know that the government's not going to sit there and gouge you and charge you an arm and a leg for basic services. They're there to provide you with just the services. And most people, if they know the government's offering a cheaper, better option, are going to take the government option. Yeah. They're going to take the public option.
And buy wealthy private organizations.
And it will sink the big companies down, and they don't want to do that, and they know that's true. You add a public option, which is what Hillary Clinton is proposing, into the healthcare bill. Imagine what that does. Now, you can choose between here. We live out here in LA, or in California rather. In California, you have a couple options for healthcare, which is funny because you only got like 3 of them. Yeah. It's the healthcare industry it turned just like the phone industry is turning into, or the communications industry is turning into. You get to choose from 5 companies basically, as opposed to a conglomerate of different providers. But here in California, we have Anthem, Blue Cross, Blue Shield, or something like that. But you can also go for Covered California, which is the state mandated health insurance. But imagine if the federal government had a health insurance option, and it was just as good as you got from Blue Shield or Blue Cross, but it was a fraction of the price, and it was paid for through our tax dollars. Wouldn't you take that?
I can answer for everyone. Yes.
Yeah, I think I would too. Now, go to any other developed nation in the world, like any other Scandinavian country. Their taxes are a little higher, right?
Yeah.
Right? Their taxes are a little higher.
Everything else is so much better.
But damn, they make up for the amount that they're paying more in taxes. That's pretty much the same thing you'd be paying in healthcare costs anyway, right?
Yeah. And you're getting so much more.
And you're getting so much
more.
So you pull an extra, $150 out of my check every month, but I'm paying $250 a month for health insurance. So really, what difference? And that way, everybody gets health insurance. Not just the privileged few. So this public option that Hillary Clinton is proposing is something that, of course, all of the big insurance companies are
despising.
Are trying to fight against. They're trying to call it a government takeover of healthcare, and a lot of people are saying, why should I have to supplement other people and do all these other things? I mean, what really is how is that American? How is that something that we look at from a standpoint of democracy. Democracy states that we're all in this together, not just from a social standpoint, but from an economic standpoint as well. And healthcare really, really, really affects the economy, especially since we spend more on healthcare in this country than any other nation on earth. Why is it that our healthcare system is kind of shackled down like this? I think a public option would be a good idea.
I think it sounds like a fantastic option.
Yeah.
I think it's a universal agreement right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Universal in the sense of 3 people, but close enough.
Yeah.
Right. And
I'm very cool people.
Very, very cool people.
Yeah, 3 okay people. Well, 2 okay people and 1 like amazing, awesome guy.
Oh, thank you, Mike.
Excuse me?
So sweet of you to say that.
Yeah, well, you know.
Too?
Yeah,
it's you right here. This mic.
Yeah, this mic. This mic.
Over here.
But I am curious to know what y'all think out there too, listening. I mean, what do you think about the healthcare system? Do you think a public option would be a better idea? Or do you think we should go back to the way things were before? Where, if I smoke or if I got cancer before, I can't get health insurance. Or if I get sick, I'm just asked out. Or if I'm working a job that doesn't pay well enough where I can't afford to have health insurance and whatever else. Or my kids get kicked off off of my health insurance when they turn 18 and they're on their own. Kind of curious to know what y'all think about that. So write me, go ahead and drop us a line. You know where to do that at MikeRileyNow.com. And let us know what you think about the whole health thing. So yeah. And I personally think a public option would, in the long run, be way better for our economy too. So, but we'll see how that happens. Anyway, all right, y'all. Well, that is our show. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. Thank you so much for subscribing. God bless Cameron. God bless Charlie. God bless Brooke. And God bless all of y'all. And to quote a great scholar, remember, democracy is not a spectator sport. It starts with you. Tag your it. You got to get involved, y'all. All right. God bless you. Cheers.
Cheers.
You are listening to the Mike Riley Now podcast on the Young Angels of America Network. Follow us by visiting MikeRileyNow.com.